Sci-Fi. Hello everybody, one and all, it is me Sci-Fi and I am back again with another review. And today I felt like investigating some of the more infested weapons of Warframe, and that is where I decided to review the Phage. So for those of you who do not know, the Phage is a Mastery Rank 11 infested beam weapon that can be acquired in the Biolab in the Tenno Dojo. It has a few unique properties. For starters, the way the weapon attacks is very different, and is in a lot of ways similar to another weapon called the Convectrix, where it has beams that start at a spread away from the reticle, and as you fire, they will converge, hitting the target multiple times. However, unlike the Convectrix, you have to aim in order to get the beams to converge. This allows for the weapon to have some interesting utilities, where you can control the spread radius, so that way you can, say, have it spread halfway in order to hit multiple targets down a hallway, or do a full convergence in order to hit one single target. Now in practice, this isn't particularly great, which is why I only recommend using the fully converged mode. In addition, unlike most other beam weapons, it seems to prioritize crit over status, which in practice doesn't seem like the best way of doing it until you realize that this weapon has multiple beams that hit the target. Meaning that you will have not only a good amount of statuses being procced, but also very, very decent critical chance alongside it, which allows for us to have a lot of leeway with how we want to mod our weapons. And, most importantly, it has viral damage at base, meaning that we can take advantage of viral toxin, corrosive heat and viral, anything that we want to use, we can use it, because we will always be getting extra bonus damage thanks to the viral procs. Now, as you know, I want to talk about problems that weapons have first before I review them, and the Phage has one big problem. You see, the ability to control the spread, as I mentioned before, doesn't work that well, so we have to rely on a single beam to do our damage. But the problem is that the beam itself doesn't have any punch-through, meaning that we realistically can only hit one target at a time. Now this can be easily fixed by using the mod Seeking Force, which allows us to get increased punch-through on our attacks, basically making the Phage into a pseudo-phantasma. But as I said before, it is a mod slot that we are going to have to take up. In addition, because the Phage is a beam weapon, it doesn't do particularly well against Acolyte or boss-type enemies. And because of this, we're not going to review the Phage in the context of using it as an Acolyte killer because of the damage attenuation system that Acolytes and bosses have. So, when looking at these results, you're only going to really see it against normal enemies and Eximus. So if you want to use this against bosses, you're out of luck, and you're going to have to bring a secondary weapon or a melee that can dispatch them quickly. Now when it comes to the Phage, there are two builds that we can realistically do. The first, which I have shown a few times so far, is a corrosive heat and viral build, where we use a few mods to get corrosive heat as well as the viral status at base. This allows for the weapon to full strip if we use 2 green shards, and in addition, the viral damage will boost the heat proc damage that we get from the heat damage infused to our weapon. And combined with a mod for punch through, this can allow the Phage to easily compete with meta staples like the Phantasma. Now the second build is going to be centered entirely around the Corpus, and because it already has viral damage at base, we can use a single mod to give us toxin damage on the weapon. And because we're going to be utilizing toxin damage with the Corpus build, rather than using primary Deadhead on the Grineer build like before, we can use primary Blight, which will boost our crit damage and multi-shot when we get toxin procs, which do stack. And since toxin bypasses shields, this kind of makes it a no-brainer to allow the viral procs to deal extra damage to health with the toxin procs going through the shields. Now the limbo build I'm using here is this one, where we are using base range, and we are also getting lots of strength to allow Rift Torrent to do its job and buff our weapons out the wazoo. But from the previous tests that you've seen, this isn't really necessary and is more so just so we can get bigger numbers. And for both of these builds, I'm also going to be using this MOA setup here. Now, I am going to have a slight change to the Grineer build here, where I am going to be using a Riven. You'll see this here as well as in a Murmur Survival, which I will show after the Corpus and the Grineer. Here is the Corrosive Heat Viral build against normal Grineer enemies. Here is the Corrosive Heat Viral build against Grineer Eximus units. Here is the Viral Toxin build against Corpus normal enemies. And here is the Toxin Viral build against Corpus Eximus units. And here it is against the Murmur. And here it is against a Murmur Eximus. So based on the results that we have here, I think it's good to conclude that the Phage is a very, very potent beam weapon that I personally believe can even give weapons like the Torrid a run for their money. If you are smart with it, that is. Now, like I said before, it's not perfect. It can't handle acolytes or bosses, for example, but most of the enemies that you're fighting are not going to be acolytes or bosses anyway, so for the general star chart and steel path, this thing can be quite potent. Now, if you want to learn more about the Phage and more interesting builds, I would recommend checking out a friend of mine named Flo. He makes some pretty awesome videos and very niche builds a lot of the time, and he's overall a pretty cool guy. So, keep that in mind. Anyway, that's been me, Sci-Fi, talking about the awesome Phage, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. See you next time.